The new service chiefs, as appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari, appear to have hit the ground running after they wasted no time in visiting Maiduguri, the theater of Nigeria's decade-long war against terror. Before this time, reports had it that troop morale was at an all-time low. But that visit by the new military commanders will have done a lot to cheer up and lift the spirit of the fighting men. However, members of the Nigerian Senate say a lot more needs to be done at this point as a way of preparing for the new phase in the war against terrorism in the northeast of Nigeria. They want the federal government to review the ECOWAS protocol on free movement, as according to the lawmakers, this would help to check the influx or infiltration of criminal elements into the country. Joining us now to look at this matter in detail is Senator Chimaroke Nnamani, who represents Enugu East Senatorial District in southeast Nigeria and a two-term governor of Enugu State. He will also help bring illumination to a number of other issues, including youth empowerment and engagement, women empowerment, and infrastructure development. Senator Nnamani, good morning. Welcome to the morning show.
Yeah, good morning, Ruben. Thank you.
Yes, it's good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
Very quickly.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Good morning,
in response to your invitation.
Thank you very much indeed.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir.
Well, quickly, we've been talking, before we start talking about ECOWAS protocols, we'd just like to take your comments on Chief Lateef Jakonde, former governor of Lagos State, who passed on yesterday and who is being buried today here in Lagos. We've said a lot about him, but as a former governor yourself and as a Nigerian and as a student of Nigerian politics, what do you think about Lateef Jakonde's legacy?
Well, firstly, I'll have to extend my sympathy on behalf of my people to the Jakonde family and to the people of Lagos State, and pray with others that his soul will rest in peace. He has a great legacy to show for his role in public service, a man honest, self-effacing, humble, compared to his peers, well above board. A man with the true political experience, the true Nigerian story. Having said that, Ruben, I'm here essentially to give you my take of the state of the nation, state of Nigeria. Looking at 6 thematic areas, broad thematic areas. Looking at poverty, national transformation, youth bulge, or dysfunctional demographic transition, critical infrastructure, what I call gap crisis, and a failed expectation framework. I'll go further to stretch that and correlate it to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the work, the theory of human motivation, Psychological Review 1943. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to x-ray in a systematic form the problem that is Nigeria today.
Well,
a holistic view of a sick nation rather than symptoms and signs.
Well, that sounds really enticing. But let's start with the gap crisis. What kind of gap crisis does Nigeria face?
Yes. Nigeria, you have to understand that when you look at poverty, Nigeria has the highest level of extremely poor people. Nigeria has a poverty index of about 46 to 52% of those who have absolute poverty. Poverty will range from maybe 71.2% northwest, 72% northeast, 67% north central, going all the way down to 26% in the southeast. So you have a wide gap of the many, many poor and the few rich. I refer you to an Oxfam study, I believe 2016. Forgive me, it's so far, 2016, that shows that to lift the extremely poor Nigerians out of poverty, less than maybe $1.90 per day, you need $24 billion. Guess what? 5% of the top richest Nigerians at that time, their net worth was about $29.9 billion. So there's a wide gap between those who have and those who do not have. And what makes Nigeria's situation so bad is that the elite, the less than 2% that constitute those who have, are what I describe as dysfunctional elite, lacking empathy, who see where they are as their gods being more benevolent than the gods of others. So there's a gap crisis. That gap crisis creates desperation, creates anger. Look at what happened during the SARS SARS riot, where people were looting. People were looting psychiatric hospitals, looting hospitals. It means that the oppressed, unquote, have lost their humanity. So for the oppressed to lose their humanity, the oppressors will first lose their own humanity. Because the oppressors have looked at the oppressed as material subjects to be conquered, to be ruled, to be subjugated. So for the oppressed to lose their humanity, the oppressors have lost their humanity. So I believe that gap crisis is a problem that has to be addressed. Economic inequality, gender inequality, regional inequality. Look at the global gender gap indices. Nigeria is somewhere between 128 and 133 out of 153 countries. When you consider the gender gap in terms of educational attainment, economic empowerment, life, health, and also other parameters. So there is a wide gap. And that wide gap is part of the frustration, the anger, the tension in the land.
Indeed, sir. You would know, since you're a member of the Senate Committee on Women's Affairs, I'd like to actually expand a bit more on the empowerment of women and its crucial importance. It's never too much to repeat that. And also, you mentioned just now regional inequality. I'd like you to expand on that, if you will, sir.
Okay. Talking about gender inequality. You know, because of our traditional system, the system is entrenched to disenable women. Women are the ones doing the low-skilled, low-paid jobs. Women, 75% of women are illiterate. 75% of women who are poor are illiterate. But 28% of men who are rich are illiterate. Are you following me? So we have a system where women bear the major burden of poverty. If you talk about water, you could talk about housing, if you talk about sanitation, if you talk about communicable diseases, HIV, malaria, it is borne by women. And of course, disparity in terms of political power, in terms of appointments. So it's a society where it is stacked against women. So when you talk about parameters to relieve poverty, if you're talking about eradication of poverty, talking about decrease in child mortality, increase in maternal health, if you're talking about environmental sanitation, if you're talking about sustainable communities, sustainable cities, all these are things targeted to improve the lives of womanhood.
If I may come in here, sir, we need to take a short break.
Then in terms of regional...
We need to take a short break, sir. Sorry about that. We'll be back to talk about regional inequality. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show. Now we're heading back to the Abuja studio to rejoin Senator Chimaroke Nnamani. Sir, are you with us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. You were about to talk about regional inequality, sir, before we went on the break. Do carry on.
Okay, thank you. I would like to use population dynamics to explain regional inequality. Why 16 million children on the streets out of school, 14 million in northern Nigeria alone, and the restiveness. If you look at the population dynamics, in 1950, Nigerian population was roughly about 38 million people. Presently, we're looking at 195 million to 200 million. We expect that by the year 2030, Nigerian population is expected to be about 236 million. And by the year 2050, 410 million, which will make Nigeria the third most populous nation in the world. You see, you have a situation where this expanding population shows up with the under 25s, and also shows up with the working age group, which is between 15 and 65, and the less than 15, with a contraction of the dependent population, which is over 65. So you have a youth bulge. That youth bulge can transform into a demographic dividend or a demographic bump. So if the right things are done, it will transform into a demographic dividend. But if the wrong things are not done, it will become a demographic bump. Right things will include education, health, providing jobs, useful employment, providing infrastructure, providing social security, providing sanitation, providing creative ways and innovative ways to harness the human resource of the youth, providing agrarian loans, providing areas of manufacturing. So what is happening in Nigeria today? Because these less than 25s, the activities are turning into a near demographic bump. That is why you have youth restiveness. You have hopelessness. You have frustration that gives room for indoctrination. And when you have indoctrination, you have problems with Northeast, South-South, and other areas. Header conflicts, banditry, kidnapping. So I believe that this inequality has something to do with the demographic changes in a nation that is unprepared for the youth bulge. I also believe that if you look at areas of critical infrastructure, essentially transportation, defense, health, education, energy, electricity, communication, commerce, manufacturing, that these are areas that can be addressed to deal with these demographic changes. And of course, war on poverty. Let me tell you, different nations all over the world have had specific programs to address poverty. In America, you had Franklin Roosevelt, Delano Roosevelt, 1936, New Deal, the war against New Deal, the war against depression, where Roosevelt came up with programs, aggressive public works, public sector reform, financial regulations, Farm Security Act, Food Security Act, and Social Security Act. Then, of course, Reuben, 1948, Harry Truman, Marshall Plan, $12 billion to address the recovery in European nations after the World War. And of course, Lyndon Baines Johnson, after the World War, yes. And Lyndon Baines Johnson, 1964, the Great Society, War on Poverty. People forget that there is also poverty in America. There are areas in America where you don't have indoor plumbing, the Appalachians. So Lyndon Johnson had war on poverty, targeted programs that addressed food security with food stamps, addressed urban housing with the projects, addressed education with Health Start and Higher Education Act, addressed health with Medicaid, and of course, social security, and created the Equal Opportunity Act of 1964, that it created the Office of Equal Opportunity. So Nigeria has to identify its own New Deal, its own Marshall Plan, its own Great Society, which is a program targeted to address poverty in Nigeria.
Correct.
Because, indeed, the majority are poor. So you're talking about almost 92 million people. If 92 million people live in absolute poverty, it means they cannot fulfill their basic needs. Food, water, shelter, safe drinking water. They cannot fulfill their basic needs. And guess what? You can have general economic changes. It does not affect absolute poverty. Because if you look at Nigeria's growth rate in the 2000 years, you're talking about 7% growth rate, but poverty increased.
Okay.
Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
Even though the rich are getting richer, the poor are also getting poorer. So the economic changes, the economic advantages are not felt at the lower level. And of course, you have the social elite. You have state capture. With state capture, these few rich will make policies and plans to suit their agenda. Okay. That is why when you talk about taxation, who pays taxes? The poor people, the poor companies. Are you following me? However, you have tariffs, you have mechanisms exploited by those who control the economy and those who control power. So essentially, there has to be a system to provide economic leverages and factors, where factors of production, capital, land, have to be provided to the people so they can also achieve their Nigerian dream.
I mean, you've said a lot, sir. And I like
hopefully, we are going to discuss the area of...
okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. You've said a lot, and I like the way you've painted a picture. But, sir, look at the antecedents. Yeah, you've been able to cite about population. What we're just going through is what Malthus talked about. That's what's called the Malthusian catastrophe or Malthusian trap. That once population increase, obviously, the living of people will decrease. Marshall talked about it like close to 100 years ago. And that's the case in Nigeria. We know all the great things to do. But the problem is always the political will. We are celebrating Lateef Jakonde because he was the only man that had the political will to say, I as a politician, I don't want to steal. The interest of my people is more than anything. How can we teach politicians to have the political will for Nigerians today? Because all of this you're saying, I tell you, tons of politicians know what you've just said. But the politician will be doing their interests, personal interests, and building big houses in Lagos and Abuja supersedes their passion to be able to do these things for people. How do we instill the will?
Yes. Let's, as the Americans will say, let's cut the chase. Let's go to the point. Address poverty. Address poverty aggressively. How do you address poverty? Universal primary education. Provide free education at the primary and the secondary level. Education empowers the people. They know their rights. Decrease maternal mortality. Decrease infant mortality. Are you following me? Provide jobs. Provide sustainable communities. Educate them. Look at the pedagogy of the oppressed. Work done by Paulo Freire. Pedagogy of the oppressed. What does the oppressor do? The oppressor educates you to accept the status quo. Are you following me? The oppressor dehumanizes you, educates you to accept the status quo. But with improvement in literacy, people reading, they will understand that the status quo is not in their interest. After all, look at the changes. Look at where people fought, dislodged dictators, Zimbabwe, Mugabe, Uganda. And what happened? The oppressed become oppressors. Are you following me?
Yeah.
If you are, I don't know whether you're comfortable with the anti-dialogical mechanism, where the oppressed looks for dialogue, but the oppressor looks for anti-dialogical mechanism. So Nigeria belongs to all of us. We cannot keep complaining. Educate the people so they can know their rights. Is a digital world. Is a global world. Provide education. Provide health facilities. Empower them through agriculture. Then they will know their rights. We cannot continue on a vicious cycle. I told you 6 parameters. Eradicate poverty through a targeted, it's not the usual. What is happening is unusual. So provide a targeted program that will fight war against poverty. A targeted program. Provide critical infrastructure. Address youth bulge. Address gap crisis. Let me tell you, look at Nigeria's constitution, 14(2)(b), that talks about the primary role of government is the welfare and the security of the people. Look at 17, that talks about social objectives. 17(3) to H talks about jobs, talks about work environment, talks about medicine and health, talks about family. And look at section 18, 3 to D, talks about primary education, secondary education, university education, and even adult literacy program. So the mechanisms are in place. It's for us to have the capacity and will. After all, who is the politician? What are the standards? What are the guidelines? The Nigerian elite, how does the Nigerian elite emerge? Is it intellect? Is it intelligence? Is it hard work? Is it inheritance? The Nigerian elite emerges through placement. Somebody places you. Somebody is appointed military governor. He starts looking for his old boys. Old boys association will welcome him, right? And start looking for his townsmen. That is how the elite emerge.
Senator Nnamani.
Politicians emerge and they place others. So build capacity.
Senator Nnamani, we need to take a short break. When we return, the conversation will continue.
Okay,
so
Ruben,
please stay with us. But the questions will be more specific when we return. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Senator Chimaroke Nnamani, who represents Enugu East Senatorial District in southeast Nigeria, and a former two-time governor of Enugu State. Well, Senator Nnamani, I said before we went on that break that when we come back, we'll be more specific, because I want us to respond to specific Nigerian contemporary situations. Now, with regard to the examples that you gave, yes, the New Deal, the Good Society, all of those measures. But people in government today will say that, in fact, they are also doing a lot to alleviate poverty. The Buhari administration, for example, has in place a national social investment program under which they've been tackling poverty. This administration also introduced what they call the N-Power program, under which the objective of the president is to create as many jobs as possible for Nigerians. They also have what they call the GEEP. Only recently, we were told for the first time that there is a national social register that has been upgraded, and which under the economic sustainability program, this government is going to make sure that young Nigerians are mobilized appropriately so that they don't become disillusioned. And also, of course, we have the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, who is in charge of an employment program, a job creation program. Now, what's your assessment of all of this? Do you think that they fit into the framework that you defined? And then secondly, something that will also be of interest to our viewers. Somebody is likely to ask the controversy, the argument, the debate about the presidency in 2023. Are you also planning to run for president? And on what platform? And, yes.
I'm not here to do an analysis of government response. I'm here to talk about addressing maternal health. You need to address, that is where it all starts. Provide free maternal care. As the child is delivered, provide immunization, provide free health. Take that child up to elementary 4, up to age 4 or 5, pre-K. Provide pre-K education. Provide free primary school education, free secondary school education. Tie it up with a school meal program. Tie up the school meal program with school health check, to check for dentition, check for attention deficit disorder, check for sight. Follow that child all through to university. After university, follow the child to youth service. Extend the youth service to 3 years. Are you following me? Extend that youth service to 3 years optional with entrepreneurship. As somebody is leaving that service after 2 or 3 years, provide small loan for entrepreneurship, provide agrarian loan. I'm talking about targeted program. Create a youth empowerment commission, just as you have federal character commission. You must understand that at a certain age, they don't offer them jobs anymore. By the time you start getting to 28, 30, 32, 33, you can't get a job because they say you've gotten too old for entry position. So provide a youth empowerment commission. Our greatest problem today, the future, is the expected demographic bomb due to youth bulge. How are you going to address the youths? There has to be targeted program. Understand the litany of programs by the federal government. I give them kudos, but I'm saying we have to go back. There has to be a reset. A reset. If there's a surgeon and there's a tumor, you remove it. You take it out. As long as you don't take it out, all the mechanisms you apply are cosmetic. So go back to basics. Provide free maternal health care. Provide health care, primary, secondary, university, with free education. Follow that youth into youth service. 3 years, 2 years, optional. Empower that youth when that youth comes out. Provide communes, manufacturing communes, cottage industry. And then we used to have a commodity board. You know that government can buy up those things from the youth. Government can buy them up, refine them, and export them. That is what I'm talking about.
Senator Nnamani, I asked you, I said, with all these ideas...
I don't remember your other question.
No, okay, I had asked you, with all these ideas, do you have plans to run for the position of President of Nigeria in 2023? Now that there is this conversation about Igbo presidency and restructuring. And that's your platform. Ebeano, is it still active? Is it something you intend to activate in case you want to run for president?
I'm glad you mentioned the Ebano political family, which I belong. That Ebano political family is headed by our governor, Ifeanyi Chukwu Ugwuanyi, otherwise called Buruburu. And in the Ebano family, we have a way of doing things. And I believe that my leader, the governor, who is well qualified to become president, and the Ebano family will address that issue. Thank you, Ruben.
But Igbo presidency, is it an idea?
Thank your colleagues, too. I forgot their names.
Tondo and Rufai. Igbo presidency. Is it an idea Rufai, that you think the time has come?
The idea that the time has come is the restructuring of the Nigerian state. Restructuring of the Nigerian state. Devolution of powers. Physical and fiscal federalism, where the Igbo will come to the table with the same potential as the Yoruba and the House of Fulani. Do you understand? Do you understand? Where the Igbo child can dream of being chairman EFCC. Where the Igbo child can dream of being national security advisor. Where the Igbo child can dream about being service chief. As long as those parameters are not met, other questions are totally irrelevant. The issue, restructure Nigeria. Restructure Nigeria. So all of us can fulfill our highest potential on an equal basis. Remember we talked about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What is the highest hierarchy of needs? Self-actualization. Doing what you can, right? Right? Even though there's another one, transcendental level. So provide an enabling environment. Provide a level playing field. If you're going to be chairman, MD, Waterways Corporation, you can also have potential of being MD and NPC. Are you following me? That is what we need to address. The issue of presidency has to do with capacity. Remember, when we talk about presidency, a lot of people think it's ceremonial. But the president is chief executive. The president is the guy who is running the gas station, who is running the university. Are you following me? Who is running the hospital? The Nigerian president is chief executive of Nigeria. The buck stops on him. The memos have to be read. Decisions have to be made. Whatever advice they give to you, it's hard work. I had opportunity to relate to President Obasanjo when he was president. Very, it's a lot of work, hard work. He was up, he gave it 24 hours every day. He read all his memos, signed all the papers, wrote letter. It's hard work. Your chief executive. It's not ceremonial. The capacity has to be there. The intellect has to be there. The energy has to be there. There has to be knowledge of history. What is the difference between animals and human beings? Animals vegetate. They maintain the status quo. Human beings are aware of history. By being aware of history, you can deal with the present and you can deal with the future. It's big time stuff. It's serious business.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Chimaroke Nnamani, for joining us today on The Morning Show.